And so we're going to open this afternoon with a panel discussion on health and resilience in communities and individuals in the face of pandemic. Now, Dr. Margaret Somerville, Public Health Director, NHS Highlands, was hoping to be on this panel, but she's unavoidably in another meeting. However, we have three panelists who all have hands-on experience of actually building communities and turning a vision into reality. And I think it's really important that we hear from them the bricks and mortar, the nuts and bolts, whatever metaphor you like, but actually all these great ideas need translating into action. So here we're going to learn about the actions that these three distinguished people have taken. Now, I've already introduced Bizong to you this morning. Karen Schwartz is the founding director of Transition Town Forest, Scotland. Karen. And Karen has spoken at our conferences before. She's very lively, very energetic and enthusiastic, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from her. We also have Kosha Jua, who's the Global Eco Village Network President, who has an enormous amount of experience going back to her days in South Africa, when I gather she was in a multiracial community, then later in Holland, and now located at Findhorn. So looking forward very much to hearing from her too. And from Bizong, we'll learn more about Shen. The format is that I'm going to ask each of our panelists to speak briefly, just to introduce themselves and give a sense of what their passion is. And then we're going to encourage them to talk among themselves for a little bit, and then we're going to open it up to everybody to join in the discussion. So first of all, I'm going to ask Karen to come and introduce herself.
Good afternoon to the pandemic session, the graveyard session after lunch. I hope you're all going to stay with us throughout the session. I am Karin Schwartz. I'm Swedish, and I used to be a banker. For 27 years, I worked in Stockholm, New York, Berlin, and London in international finance. And growing money was good fun for many years until I reached the wall and the two young children came home with increasingly problematic school reports. Their mother was not there. So I emigrated to Scotland, and I now live in Findhorn, just an hour up the road. It took me about a year to settle into the wilderness up here, and then I came across something that's called the transition movement, Transition Town movement. That movement is built on principles of permaculture. Permaculture, in turn, is a method of looking after ourselves, people care, looking after the planet, Earth care, and then the third element is fair share. There was a very inspiring permaculture teacher called Rob Hopkins. And back in 2005, he was teaching permaculture to students in Ireland. And they realized that with the coming and increasing climate change and peak oil, the people who really needed to do something about this, apart from all the decision makers, are the people on the ground, the people ground up. So he started what has now become an international movement with over 3,000 transition groups all over the world. In 2008, I co-founded a group in Forres, in Scotland, up here. And it's from that perspective really that I speak to you, not from anything about the banking experience. It is about how to get individuals such as yourself to move the bum of yours into action. And to move it into practical action, as much as I appreciate all and every one of yours academic achievements, which do come with a lot of practical action. We've seen the slides, I know that. But what I'm trying to do is take people who think nothing of themselves, very often without any education, very often with minimal resources. And I'm working with them without them knowing that I'm working with them. One of my biggest successes is to have 70 people. It's a small number, but it's 70 people in a small local town in Scotland who are now growing their own food. We're into our 6th season, and these people are feeding over 1,000 people. It is very, very small, but bear in mind we're talking about a largely white, middle-class-ish town in Scotland with very little sunlight and with not the most fertile soil. These people have now started to grow their food. By doing that, they throw away less food, and by doing that, they are inspiring their neighbors and their friends. So it's from that perspective again that I would like to see what we can do before the pandemic strikes us. How we can work together with the pathogens. How we can work together with the microorganisms, the protozoa in the soil. I love composting. I'm going to stop right there for now, and we'll continue as the questions come. Thank you.
So, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. I have learned so much since yesterday evening, and I've really enjoyed the inspired presentations that we've had. I come from South Africa, as Andrew has already said, and I think from a young youth, my question was about how do we bridge separation? I grew up with separation, unnatural separation in a country that's separated between cultures and nations. And as I became more mature and at a young age, I emigrated to the Netherlands and worked with the anti-apartheid movements there. But I came to understand that this separation that I'd found in South Africa is actually spread across the whole globe. It's between nations across the globe, but also it's between man and nature. And this question about how can we communicate deeper? How can we stop seeing each other as the enemy and really learn from each other? How can we really ride the bicycle of balance, where it's neither the one nor the other, but we create systems where actually we regenerate life wherever we go. And this is what brought me to the Global Eco-Village Network. The Global Eco-Village Network is, in a way, a sister organization of the Transition Town movement. It's slightly older. It started in 1995 and has brought together a global network of people all over the planet in all continents. So we also have a very vibrant Asian network, actually, that say we want to rebuild communities as places where humans heal themselves and heal nature around them. We want to stop this viewpoint that we've had of ourselves as human beings, that simply by living on this planet, we need to destroy. Yeah, simply through our lifestyles, we need to be destructive and actually create a new vision of who we are as human beings, that as human beings, we can be caretakers, we can be guardians of the systems around us. We can rebuild the soils, we can rebuild ecosystems. I thought the example that B-Song gave of the Chinese doctor who took as payment the replanting of trees is one of the most beautiful examples for this. Replanting of trees, thereby growing resilience in this world. So for me, the question also coming from this morning is how can we see our interaction with pandemic not as a war, because I believe as long as we see it as a war, we will always strengthen the pathogens in that. And this is what we're experiencing at the moment. This is many of the examples that we've heard that actually show that, you know, as we become stronger, they become stronger. Is that the way we want to go? Or how can we start seeing it as a truly intelligent interaction and conversation between humans and the larger natural systems that we are a part of? Thank you very much.
Right, coming back again. Because I've been requested to speak English, so that's make me speak slowly. So that's why, okay, I'm trying because I'm not that confident for my English as grammar. I hope, you know, it will be understandable. Talking about the community resilient, I'd like to introduce about the highest Shen that set up in Scotland. That's quite long stories. I try to cut long story short. I have been doing my Chinese medicine practice and treating the people for my whole life. And I find that there is a pattern. But most of the people ill, and the majority is not, and then because their life not very good, and especially in the West. And then it's because their emotion. So their Chinese medicine always said, an external element cause the disease. We're going to stages by stages, like from the skin and then to the muscles and then blood and the internal organs and the bone. But emotion and problems will directly attack your organs instant. So therefore, I just find, oh God, so many money threw into the health care and so much time and effort and then put into it. Is what's the key element? And that's why some people living in a horrible environment, and then they are so strong. But we live in such wonderful and then comfortable environment, so like sharing. But why they got cancer? So that's why it's really, I find through the practice of Chinese medicine and the ancient wisdom, I start find our human being in the emotion and then the pattern and then their soul levels need into the right place. So when the people have really happy within themselves, and then there's not acting as victim and not fearful for whatever happening. So their immune system just so strong because inside their organs is all happy, collaborate with each other. Like when the people have a sadness, and then you will find, because Chinese medicine said, if you feel sad, they're directly and they attack the lung. So that's why. And then when the people practice Qigong, as soon as they feel sadness, because the Qigong is raising awareness, it's a kind of ancient practice. As soon as you feel sadness, they directly attack the lung, and the lung feel like a shrink, and then tightness. And then if there is emotion and turbulence, so there are some other, depends on each emotion, will be affect each kind of organs, such like fear. If people fearful, and then there's Chinese medicine said their urine is just come out and then the shit come out, because in the Chinese medicine, the kidney and related with fear. If you're fearful, and then those organs lost the control, and also kidney is linked with the willpower. So that's also linked with, if the fear attacks the body, of course, you have no willpower, you cannot do things, and then germs and the virus are going to come, and then you become weakness. So I just want to mention that because people talking about the light and referring my talk, I just want to say it's a huge system within the one human body. They're all interconnected. So the Chinese medicine is really learning and function how to understand there's a huge system within ourselves. There's also another series in also understanding our human body is a miniature cosmos. Our body connecting the bigger cosmos. So each month, each season, each years have a different energy from different planet affected our each organs. So that's kind of also the Chinese medicine wisdom to learn what is patterns about. So that's why I'm very, very passionate through understanding and then learning. That's a pattern study, and then within the Chinese medicine along, and then leading me to understand, and then their energy system is so powerful if you can really balance up and harmonious all those emotions. So that's why, and apparently, And since I was actively teaching Qigong globally, I was traveling because when the people heal themselves, they say, am I just going to be good forever or not? And we find that the challenge is the society's education. When the people feel better after treatment, after the dealing emotion, they feel relaxed, they go back to their old living environment, which has been told everything's separate. So and then the mental understanding, they go back to the old pattern, diseases start happen again. So therefore, the very important part is how our human being to understand the blueprint, our human body, our society, and our planet, and the cosmos. So that's why I always find the community resilient is actually almost like the unit of the society. So our each cells within the body acts like a community. So that's why the everything's holograph system, as Western science already described. So if we want to really doing very well, and then we need the daily and each time, every moment, repeatedly to understand how that system works. Something very small, but that's very profound. Just like Qigong to make you really healthy and not getting ill, it's like you need to have every day practice the same things. And then, but the same sense is coding the big cosmos and rhythms. So that's why the community resilience, I always very passionate. Since Shen set up here is we feel that the big picture and also through the ancient understanding, we know the cycles. Because there's lots of people know the I Ching and knowing the Yellow Emperor, there's a certain kind of wisdom can predict how the planet affected the energy. So we will come to one of the very important stage. If we are not really looking into how to get health from the small part, which is a community, and how to get on. Oh, sorry, I forgot time again. So that's one of the reasons why we will come to Scotland. We find here is a fantastic place, and then people conscious levels is amazingly high. And we never close the door, and then we never lock the car. So from that point, there's already healthy cell, and then start from here. So the community so-called education and linked, and then will be really readily to implement. So that's why we were doing, the Shens come here, really want to make the network and then linked, especially engaging with a very ground community engagement. That's why we were very much like to work with Karen and Kusha as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bizong. And now I'd like to see if our panelists have thoughts they want to share with each other, having heard each person speak. So let's just see what happens. If you've got questions for each other, or challenge each other, or share what's been perhaps most difficult. But you've got mics here.
Okay. In which case, I would like to start with a question to Kosha, who is working with eco-villages all over the world. And as I understand it, she is now teaching groups of people who want to come together to start new eco-villages. And my direct question is, why would anyone, particularly in the global south or in Asia, want to start an eco-village when they already maybe live in old-fashioned village surroundings? Speak more about why anyone would like to start an eco-village.
Thank you, Karen. I think one aspect, and I spoke already about this, is that the Global Eco-Village Network and the Transition Town movement are actually very close together. And the friendships and also the background in permaculture design is shared by both movements. So what we see currently is that villages and communities all over the planet are disintegrating at a rapid speed. It's going very, very fast, as we all know. And the slums and the cities are growing at rapid speeds. And I think it's a very good question to ask ourselves, why is this happening? Because I find that currently in most of the dialogues that I'm a part of, it's seen as a given, as if it's a natural part of human evolution. And I wonder whether that is true, because in all the countries that I work in, actually people are leaving the rural communities, not because they're so drawn to global culture and city culture, but simply because their rivers are polluted, they have no access to their forests anymore, their lands are being appropriated, and actually they cannot survive where they are in the rural communities. So it's a real question for me, and a deeper question around human health for me is about how can we both create healthy environments in cities, and how can we retain healthy environments and also healthy ecosystems in the rural areas, and to look at both of those. And everywhere on this planet we have many, many people on the ground, and I believe that one of the main resources that is underutilized at the moment on this planet is the good intentions of citizens, and the real willingness of citizens all over the world, and the longing of citizens to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. So we see citizens who are longing to find, how can I live low carbon, high quality lifestyles? What would that mean? And through the Global Eco-Village Network and Transition currently, we showcase some of the communities with the lowest carbon footprints, where at the same time people say we live a truly high quality lifestyle. So there's more and more people who are interested in what are the patterns of thinking that lie behind this. And it's a very holistic pattern where you see we need to look at all the areas of human actions. So we need to look at sustainability in the social dimension, in the cultural, in the ecological, and the economic dimension. And we need to find the leverage points in each of these dimensions that will make us more resilient, not just in one. So in the Global Eco-Village Network in Gen, we've developed an education called Gaia Education, the Eco-Village Design Education, which has been endorsed by UNITAR and the UN. We also, one of the many NGOs that have consultative status with the UN. And this curriculum has actually been translated to Chinese as well. So I just want to name that in case there's people here who are interested in following up online. It's on the Gaia Education website, quite easy to find. And we find that more and more people, so we started off just in a few countries. Currently this curriculum is being delivered in over 40 countries the world over. And we started around 8 years ago delivering the curriculum. So it's an interest that is growing rapidly.
Do you want to respond to that, Karen?
Well, yes, thank you. So what I hear is that people come for the Eco-Village design education when they are ready to be active and to take an active stance in wanting to move into a designed eco-village. I think what I'm working with are the people who are one step before, or maybe two steps before, people in their ordinary neighborhood, whether it be in a city or in a village or rurally, but people who are primarily concerned about climate change and peak oil, admittedly, and the changes in the world, but also many of the issues that we've spoken about here today, because they are affecting people and the fear is grabbing everyone. So the people that I see through the Transition Network are on the beginning of a journey of wanting to make change. What really interests me is how we can follow the advice from this morning, that there should be more community engagement, and how we can help people affect change no matter which network they go into, but then follow on the trajectory into what I see as a very useful model, i.e. an eco-village. So that's not so much a question, that's more a reflection that I see that I see a need for much more grassroots involvement, and that is all over the world, and that the grassroots involvement is in connection with both the planet and the humanity and the wholesomeness that Bisong speaks about too.
Bisong, do you want to join in?
Actually, I have one question to Andrew. So, talking about our human being, the root of disease, and lots of the link with the mental pattern and the emotion. No. And then also we always find in the clinically, when the people very happy, so they won't get ill easily. And then so it's like they are really glowing and light and happy. So that's very different vibration. So that's apparently we were, I remember Andrew had been and told me, said, look, our human being is a society animal. It's like a group and together. But the modern life, if it separates each of the person and in the box, don't talk to the neighbors, don't go out to the land and then play and then have a fresh air. So of course, and then there's that shrink. So I really like to hear from the psychological point.
I'll be very brief. But just remember that our bodies, each body is 50 trillion cells living together. It's a community of cells. And from the Chinese traditional medical perspective, then of course this is a hologram that we have to look at the next level of magnification, if you like, which is our social interactions and our relationship with each other and then with the world and then with, of course, the cosmos. We know from, at the physiological level, from PNI, the psychoneuroimmunology, how profound the effect is of the mind on the immune system. This is probably the single most important factor regulating immunity. In my field, which is mental health, what I've seen over and over again is that people are estranged not only from each other, but from their own soul value, the soul values which give meaning and purpose to life, so that people are lost in a sort of anomie. That was first described by Durkheim over 100 years ago, and sort of floating around, unattached, detached. And this is, of course, a recipe for disease. And it's not cured by the massive injection of pharmaceutical treatments, which at the best are sticking plaster. Now, I won't go on because I'm not a speaker, I'm the chair, and I want to direct this back to our speakers. So, any more comments before I open it to the floor? Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, maybe just to build on what both of you have said, and also what the speaker said this morning, that this cross-sectoral conversations that we need to build healthy societies and resilient societies, building on resilient communities that are able to withstand shocks, or for instance have a mature response in the moment when a challenge comes in. I think we really need to work together as governments, scientists, and the civil society organizations that are building the communities. And I think that's what we're speaking about here, that all of these need to speak together, and there's not one simple answer, but the answer needs to come from different sides.
Again, the crucial thing seems to be finding a mindset that encourages inclusivity rather than exclusivity, or cohesion rather than fragmentation.
Yes, and that true innovation usually doesn't come from within any one of the silos, but in those conversations that bridge different spaces in our society.
And that's part of why we're meeting here as a cross-cultural venture, to find a common language that we can all use. So let's see who would like to contribute from the floor. And you could take this microphone as well, Nancy.
We've got two.
Do introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Daniel Maxwell, British Acupuncture Council and the Journal of Chinese Medicine. I'm very sympathetic to everything that's just been said, but I have a concern as well. And I wonder whether it's not naive to think that these living practices, qigong and so on, would have a significant effect against acute infectious disease that we're talking about in the form of pandemics. I mean, of course, living a sustainable lifestyle, being happy and having good circulation is bound to have a good effect on the immune system. But if I think about it, Amazonian Indians, the Chinese throughout before the 20th century, many of these people were living sustainable lifestyles very close to the earth. They weren't riddled with as many pollutants as we are now. And yet, very easily, these communities have been wiped out in the blink of an eye when it comes to these kind of acute diseases. And I wonder, my concern is that when we prioritize, these kind of things, whether we're not being naive. For instance, Bisong, you said something earlier about doctors doing enough qigong so they were full of light and they can go into diseased areas, and not get sick. And I think that's a wonderful idea, and I'm sympathetic to the positive effects on the immune system of qigong and meditation and eating organic food and so on. But I'm concerned about the limitations of that, and I think it really gets to the crux of how perhaps we can bridge, which is what we're talking about, bridge between what you're saying and what some of the excellent speakers talked about this morning, which was coming from a slightly different perspective.
I totally agree with you that, because I feel this time is very great opportunity for the Eastern, ancient wisdom, and then to meet kind of a modern scientific thinking, especially has been based on reductionism for hundreds of years. I think that is the core about what we were talking about. It's not only about Chinese medicine, because in any ancient village or ancient tradition, they have a natural medicine, they have to understand, the stars' impact on the earth, astronomy, or what you name about. So now I fully understand what your dress. And now here is what is really core problems is apparently, are we really followed and then the right mindset, which has been contribute to the humanity for thousands of years, which has been remained the kind of a certain kind of a stability. I'm not really means totally no pandemic or totally no things. That's why the human being is learning. So they're learning how to understand the heaven impact and the star impact, and then how to learn the earth movement. So that's why I like to mention there's one incident in the Song Dynasty, it's about 1,000 years ago. There's the Taoist a scientist. He mentioned that, we have an earth now called oil. You're called the fossil oil. And he said, wow, there's something can burn. But because that's a system thinking, he said, earth is alive. The oil is the bone marrow and the blood. We shouldn't take it. So the only we take as energy is the trees, because they can regrow. And you practice your internal the energy system, so you can adapt the nature environment. You don't need grabbing from externally. So that's why I'm really means it's the way of thinking. It's not just only thinking your practice. You don't care the rest of the sense. It's all as
everything is all really experimenting from the east and then go inside to look things, and then to through the understand the body and understand the outside. From the Western way, and then looking outside, and then through the look outside to see the learning curve, and then start understand the limitation, and then go inside. I had a feeling that's a great moment for this two different way of thinking start merging each other, and then to learn to be more harmonious. Is that to make?
Yeah, I'm happy to respond. I would not want to be in a world where it's an either or. I think it's tremendously important that we have the medical knowledge that we have today, and that we have the academic research and the big institutions and the big funders. But I'm all for the merging of the silos, and my metaphor is composting. When you compost, first of all, you can compost any material that was once alive. You cannot compost plastic or metal, but within that restriction, you need a little bit of everything. Indeed, if you take just grass clippings, it will not make a good compost, nor if you take a mountain of dry straw, it'll not make a compost. But if you mix everything with a little bit of liquid and a little bit of air, you get a phenomenal new material or old material, which is the earth, the soil. And if we start to look at ourselves as being part of the overall system where everyone has a place to be, I don't think we can live of air alone or of happiness alone, but I'm very much in favor of all of us trying to see our part in the bigger picture. And I loved Eric's pictures earlier today with the mechanized view, trying to get an absolute perfect mechanical structure working, or the other picture, which I don't even know what it was of, but it was so beautiful. What was it, Eric? Where every complex structures, it looked like the.
I think it was.
Was it yours? Sorry.
Arthur's.
Maybe of the universe.
Yeah.
It was a picture. That picture was of complexity and interacting systems.
And if we could all appreciate the complexities of life and take our part in it, we don't have to outshine anything else, but we could, just live as part of it. That's fine.
Yeah, just a sentence, just taking it from there, is that also this is about really integrating the traditions and modern technologies and understanding that there is so much wisdom that has grown on this planet in some of the old cultures, and to really bring those in again as we celebrate all the discoveries of modern science. And this is the time where where I think we have the freedom and also in a way, the demand from what is happening on the world and the need for an intelligent response by humanity to really integrate the best of both. So I think that's where we need to go, integrating the best of both tradition and modern technology.
Well, I'd like to say how much I appreciate our panelists' presentations and their spontaneity and energy. We've all got to die. No one wants to die before our time. And we do have the idea that an early death is a premature death. We're used to living, or hoping to live, at least 70 years and 10. But equally, and so of course, there are virulent organisms around which will carry us off, and that's not going to stop tomorrow. We're looking, I think, here at a different perspective, which is very much based on the quality of life. I'm hearing about a way of living that is enriching. It's not just the rich compost, it's the rich matrix of human relationships and the nourishment that people can offer each other and the quality of that community life. And exactly where that takes us, as Bizong says, it's something of an experiment. But it seems to me it has to be going in the right direction. And I'm just reminded also of Mahatma Gandhi's famous saying, be the change you want to see in the world. And I think our three panelists really embody that. They are living that expression of how it is to be in a process of change and endeavour and hoping and wanting to see those ripples spread wide. So many thanks to the three of you.
Thank you.
Thank